What's up again, everybody? I want Uprising. I want it really bad. It's not here in the US, it is everywhere else, and I'm seeing posts all over the place, and I'm sitting here just the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it's almost to the point where it's here. We're almost there, and it's gonna change everything that we know. Once it fully hits here in the US, we can start messing around with the cards in earnest, in like all actuality. We can get our hands on things. We can really play out these decks. I know there's a ton of people playing it on TTS and things like that just because we haven't had the opportunity yet, but I can't wait to get all of the cards and play all of the things. And I think there's a couple of cards that have a real good shot at transforming the meta, even more so than just what the set is already going to do. So today, we're going to talk about 5 maybe underrepresented cards, or, less talked about cards than some of the big hitters of the set that have a real shot at changing the way that we play Flesh and Blood. So let's get into it. First things first, this is a card I have seen talked about a good bit already, and that is Sift. Sift is one of these cards that you look at and is like, well, that's a really cool effect. Seems overall just kind of innocuous, but there's a real chance that this sees play in a variety of formats and also in a variety of decks. So first things first, what Sift does, it is a 0-cost generic non-attack action that blocks for 3. It is a rare, so you can't play it in commoner. But what does it do? Well, it says put up to 3 cards, well, this is the yellow, of course, put up to 3 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, then draw that many cards. The red does this for 4, so you can put up to 4 cards in your hand to the bottom, and the blue does for 2. And then, of course, it says go again. So why is this impactful? Why is this important? Well, any hero or class that likes to play non-attack action cards, just for any beneficial effect, can play this card and just play it out there and get a benefit from it. So what are we talking about? Icelander can play this card, sculpt her hand to a certain degree, and then follow up with her weapon, right? So you can use Waning Moon after this to deal some amount of damage. And what does it provide you? Well, the ability to find more blues or ice cards, things like that, so that you can arsenal them and then keep going. You could play the blue so that you could play it out of arsenal, and you can basically use it like a Hope Merchant's Hood on your opponent's turn to kind of find 2 cards that may serve you better. If you're playing defensively, maybe you find defense reactions, or you just find ice cards to do ice fuse stuff with on your own turn. You could also play this in Briar, because Briar likes non-attack action cards to be played. Maybe you sculpt your hand in that way. You play this, you find another non-attack action card, you play said second non-attack action card, and you create an embodiment of lightning, allowing you to kind of go wide. I have heard people already tinkering around with Sift in Briar, and I do think that is a very interesting card that could just cut its way into the list because it is a non-attack, and do note this does block for 3, which is really good. Where I like it the most, though, and I have heard a couple people talk about this, is in Valda. Valda sees you draw these cards after you play this down. And again, it says draw cards, and Valda loves you to draw cards. Like the equipment that she uses, her effect itself, all of it is just working together beautifully in concert to allow you to just create mass amounts of seismic surge tokens. And this is exactly what I'm gonna put Sift into right away. Is I'm gonna get Valda, I'm gonna get some Sifts, I'm going to push them together, and then I'm going to draw a bunch of cards after cycling my hand into something nicer and make a bunch of seismic surges, and then just do crazy Valda things. And so for these reasons, and for several more, I mean, you could play this in Viserai if you wanted to, because you do the exact same thing as you do with Briar, except you're not creating Embodiment of Lightning, you're making it easier to create Rune Chants. You can do this into a lot of different heroes, and for that reason, for that just very flexible reason, I could see this being played in a variety of decks. Now, is it the most powerful thing in the world? No. Will it stick in all deck lists? Perhaps not. But does it have a shot? Yeah, it really does have a shot to see some experimentation and play in a variety of formats. Unfortunately, it's a rare, so you can't play it in commoner, where I think it would absolutely shine, but it would be very powerful in commoner, allowing you to basically sculpt your hand, which is what one piece of equipment does this already, and having the ability to play this into multiple rarities in your deck, or multiple colors, I should say, in your deck, this is a pretty good card. Next up, we have Double Strike. Double Strike is a 0-cost ninja action attack. It comes in for 1, it blocks for 2. It's a majestic. And this one is really, really good for, well, most ninjas. I will put it that way. It's good for most ninjas. Is it good for Fi? That's a great question. I would say probably not right now. Pre whatever the Fi gets in the next supplemental set, it's probably not that good for Fi, but it's good for just about every other ninja on the board. You play this in, well, first of all, I think it's like best in Katsu, right? Because what is Katsu looking to do? He's looking to push mask triggers and looking to push his own Katsu ability trigger. And these allow you to do that. This is basically Kadachi Kadachi, like on a fundamental level. This is Kadachi Kadachi. What is 2 Kadachis? Well, it's pitch a 0 cost, like pitch a 0 cost, most likely a blue, but pitch a 0 cost. So take a card out of your hand, attack for 1 with your weapons, with Go Again. This takes a card out of your hand itself, and then it attacks for 1, and then it banishes itself so that you can play it again. Now, you don't have to go double strike, double strike. You can actually go double strike something else, and then double strike after the fact. And so this means you can also play this in Ira and lead out with this double strike and come in for 1 like you would like a Kadachi, and then play something in the middle to get the buff, and then come in after that with this, which is pretty cool. As long as you don't break the combat chain, you can do double strike like back to back, or you can do double strike with something sandwiched in between. There's a lot of flexibility to this, and because of that, this is a really interesting card, a really cool card, and I haven't even mentioned the fact that you can play this in Benji, and both times you attack with this, it is unblockable, which is really cool, because again, it comes in for 1, with Go Again, and it's unblockable, and then you do it again, and it comes in for 2. If you put them back to back, let's say the first one hits, Benji's buff happens, and then this comes in for 2, and it's still unblockable. That is an incredibly underratedly good thing to have 2 of these back to back for 1 single card, unblockable, and it sets you up nicely to use the Benji specialization that is super powerful. This card's really good, and I do expect it to see play in a variety of ninjas. It may make its way into Fi. I don't think it does right now, but every other ninja is looking at this card and just like licking their chops. It is pretty solid. Next up is Erase Face. Look, this card is the Command and Conquer of Uprising. Straight up, this is Command and Conquer in Uprising, and honestly, it probably just sees play as a Command and Conquer going forward in like sideboards in a variety of different decks. It doesn't block for 3. It doesn't have the power level of destroying an arsenal and then not being able to defense react on top of this. But what does it do? Well, if it hits, cards and tokens they own lose all class and talent types until the end of their turn. And that is, again, underratedly good, because it's fantastic in the Uprising meta already. Being able to blank all draconic attacks is really good. It was fantastically good against Fi. Being able to like stop wizard stuff, kinda good. Losing the talent types, meaning that you can't, like in Icelander, you can't play an ice card and give a frostbite. That's pretty good. But then outside of that, I mean, you're looking at like against specific heroes, this also just has a ton of utility. Losing class types. Like if Viserai is staring you down and you hit them with Erase Face, they can't generate Rune Chance, because they can't play like Rune Blade cards, because they're no longer Rune Blade cards. That's pretty interesting, and that's why I think this card is really good and has a chance to just make it into cards like decks, make it into sideboards, things like that. Plus, it's a popper, and you're playing into a meta which might just be very heavy with Prism, and it works well there, and you're playing into Dromai, and you can use this to pop dragon attacks. So there's a lot of good things about this card, and I think it's going to be meta going forward. Speaking of things that I think could be meta going forward, weirdly enough, I think Rewind has a real shot of being meta. And you look at this and you're like, well, why? But think about what we could see going into this whole meta, right? Like, Rewind doesn't appear great Because, well, let's read the card. It's a wizard instant that costs 1, pitches blue, which is good, and it says negate target non-attack action card and return it to its owner's hand. That hero gains 1 action point. So it basically just says, hold up, take that back, put it into your hand. You can do something else, but you've already pitched to pay for it. What is that good against? Well, it's good. It's really good if your opponent is playing down auras that are not instants. If they're playing down auras that they have to pay for, then it's pretty good. If they're playing down, well, there's these really cool cards that are very powerful that say channel on them. Any of them that say channel on them, you can say no to, which is pretty good. So like Channel Mount Heroic costs 3, and your opponent has to pay 3 and then play it down, and then in instant speed you respond with Rewind, and you put Channel Mount Heroic back into their hand, and then they have to pay 3 more just to play it. Channel the Bleak Expanse or Channel Lake Frigid both cost 2, and I think Channel Bleak Expanse costs 3. It's either 2 or 3. Either of them cost a lot of resources, and when they establish themselves, you say no, and then you put it back. Anything that says channel that is an aura, those cards don't exist. They are deleted thanks to Rewind, and that is why I think this is a really interesting card, because I think those cards are going to be prevalent in this meta. Anything that is a non-attack that is heavily paid into, you just put it right back. Heck, this would be really disgusting if you play Rewind on someone's Ice Eternal. No, that's real sad. That's real sad. Oh, that feels so bad. But yes, all of those types of cards just get deleted by Rewind. So is there a possible world that we live in where Rewind sees play? Yes, I think so. And that's why I'm really interested in this card. Does it see play in like both wizards? I don't know, but I'd like to see this come out. I think it'd be fun. And finally, the perhaps most meta possible card, and one that I think is overperforming everybody's expectations, Oasis Respite. Oasis Respite is really good. It's another instant that comes in, you pay 1 for it, and it just blocks 4 damage, basically, and then gains you a life. Like, there's a lot of decks that are just cool with this. And it's weird because you'd think like, well, this is basically like a defense reaction. You know, like why would you play this over something that's like a 0 for 4 Sink Below or a Fate Foreseen? Well, you don't have to play one or the other. You can play both. But really, I think the interesting thing is this dances around a lot of effects that you wouldn't normally be able to dance around. Being an instant, being a card that is not a non-attack, being a card that is not a defense reaction, being an instant, this card is really good. And then just being able to say prevent 4 and gain a life if you have less life, or heck, I've seen people running the yellows, prevent 3, just blocking out something that you wouldn't normally be able to block out, or playing this in a way that your opponent isn't expecting, like not as a defense reaction, but as an instant, sometimes has these weird greasy interactions, to coin a term from one Mr. Watch Flake. It is a very greasy card that you don't always see coming, and this one has been really overperforming. I feel like every single deck could run this card. And there's a lot of new school interactions, like for example with Dromai playing a card like this, where you can stop damage but also pitch red into this, and it's a red card. But the pitching red especially creates you an Ash. Just doing stuff like that is really super solid. And I'm super blown away by how just well-rounded this card is, for basically being just a weird version of a defense reaction that just gains you a life. There's a lot of good that goes with this card, and I feel like this makes it into a lot of different decks. And it's a common card, so it can be played in Commoner, and it probably will heavily be played in Commoner. And it's really good in UPF as well, because you can basically barter protection on someone. Because look, it says prevent the next 4 damage that will be dealt to target hero this turn by a source of your choice. And you can give less, if they have less life, you can give them life. So in UPF, this card is like the silver bullet for garnering like praise from others and goodwill from others, because you can prevent damage and give someone a life. This card's real good in every single format, and that's why I think it's going to see play across the board. So what do you think about these 5 cards? Is there anything I missed? Is there a card in here that you think is going to be secretly super meta from Uprising? Let me know in a comment below. Put it down there. Tell me what card in this set is going to be like choice. If you enjoyed this video, make a number go to a number, closing in on the old 10K, and when we hit 10K, we're going to do some crazy fun celebrations. As always, thanks for watching.